What's up guys, David Land here. Welcome to the first gaming video of Indy 500 month. And ironically enough, it doesn't take place at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. But if you were an IndyCar driver in the 1950s, you might have called this place Monza-apolis. And if you're not familiar with that, or maybe you're a local to this track, you would know it as the Autodromo Nazionale Monza, the oval track. The circuit that was last used by Formula One in the combined circuit in 1961 and hosted World Endurance Championship races up until about 1969, is also very famous for something called the Race of Two Worlds. And if you don't know what the Race of Two Worlds is, you're about to find out. It was dreamed up as an experimental race, a all-star race of sorts, for the greatest drivers in the world to test their skills at Monza, the oval, a true test of not only skill, but balls. Invited to the Race of Two Worlds were not only the great IndyCar drivers of the day, the Troy Ruttmans, the Tony Bettenhausens, but also the great Formula One and sports car drivers of the day, as well as their cars. Drivers like Alberto Ascari, Phil Hill, and others would take part in this event in the 2 years that it was run in 1957 and 1958. The unfortunate reality of the situation, though, was the Roadsters, the Indy cars, were far more suited to this sort of racing than anything else. And the Formula One teams, being the Formula One teams that they are, decided to boycott the event outside of a few privateer entries, both years. But that didn't stop some of the international contingent, or I guess you could call them national contingent, as the race took place in Europe. The Acuria Cost team, that was a Le Mans winner, entered 3 of their Jaguar D-types in this race to compete against the Watson Roadsters and other contemporary Indy cars of the time, creating quite an interesting event despite the fact that it wasn't as diverse as probably the owners envisioned it as. This race was a 500-mile race. It was split up into 3 separate heats. You might even call them stages. But in the end of the day, it was the Roadsters, as I said previously, that dominated. Troy Ruttman and Jimmy Bryan were the 2 winners, and unfortunately the event only lasted 2 years. Another unfortunate reality of the situation is the Watson Roadster that you see here is the only car in Project Cars 2 that participated in the Race of Two Worlds that you can run in this game. So we've got a single make race here for the Watson Roadsters, but it's going to be absolutely spectacular. These cars hit speeds of nearly 200 miles an hour on the straightaways and go 180 through the banked corners, which is absolutely unheard of speeds, but they were pretty close to what they were in real life. The closed course speed record was set here, if you can believe it, and I think you could, because of the high speeds. I believe it was Tony Bettenhausen who managed to set those speeds. So it's going to be a crazy race, 20 laps. I'm going to start from the back, try to work my way to the front. The AI aren't that fast here, despite the fact that they're at 120. So to give you an interesting race, that's what I'm going to do. The bumps and the banking are deadly. Let's see if I can survive 20 laps here at Monza. So here we are on the formation lap, and you may be able to notice if you watch some of my previous gameplay videos that this looks significantly better. That's because I traded my Hapag capture for an Elgato. And if you don't know what the Elgato is, it means that I can record in 60 frames per second finally. And because of that good frame rate capture of the Elgato, it means that not only these kind of racing games, which can do 60 frames per second, but pretty much across the board, all of the racing game videos are going to look much better because frame rate means so much in racing games. So here we come down for the start. Only 2 forward gears in this car, so the acceleration is going to be, or at least getting the gear right, is going to be a big key. Only 12 cars in this race because of the console limitations of the Xbox One, but ironically enough, that's fairly realistic as these races never got a big entry list. So here we come down for the start at Monza for the Race of Two Worlds. We're underway and racing and trying to get the acceleration right. You have to keep the clutch in for so long in these Roadsters. and down into the first corner we fly. It'll be over 200 miles an hour probably by the time we get to this point again. And wow, that was the bump right there, or the bumps, I should say. They can upset your car quite a bit. If you get the wheels off the ground, you're not really going to be able to drive it much anymore. To the inside goes one of the AI cars. The AI I find accelerate much better, but as you can see, look at this top speed in the draft. Oh, he's taking that was a Pruitt fade right there, to use a Paul Tracy line. So we'll go around him into turn 3, or maybe it's turn 2. How do you Europeans classify your oval turns? Because in America, of course, even if a track has really only 2 turns, we call entry and exit 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Kind of weird. So don't know how it works at Monza, but anyway, we're underway. Going to be very cautious because it's tough to pass in the corners. Nay, impossible actually to pass in the corners because it's so difficult to keep the car underneath you even when you're driving by yourself. You've got to make sure. There it is. There's a crash. Oh boy. Track blocker. Gonna go to the high side. He piles in. Oh, I missed it. Holy smokes, I missed it. Oh, there's a tire bouncing. That was almost me dead. Wow. Well, the big one just took place and everybody died. So I'm going to be very cautious coming through there on the next lap. I can tell you that. Because if the track is not clear or cleaned by the time I get over there, it could be chaos. And the car almost stepped out on me through 3 and 4. So I've got to be very cautious. And I'm calling it 3 and 4 because I am an American pig. But anyway, well, there's a car crashed on the exit. Boy, I'm glad I missed him. I didn't even see that there was a car crashed out there, so I got to be very careful. There's a car that crashed on the exit of turn 4, and there's cars theoretically crashed up here as well. So let's go very slowly into 1 and 2. See what we got to work with. This is about where the crash happened. Yeah, there's a car down to the inside, tires and wheels all over the place on the inside. But everything else has been cleaned up, so alright, we can get after it now and find out exactly where the rest of the field lies. In practice, I was able to run about 2 seconds faster than the AI, so whoever's left in this race, and there's probably not many cars, I should be able to chase them down before the end of the race. And I gotta be careful here out of 4 as well. I know there's a car up here too, or there was. Oh, yep. Oh, and now he's in the middle of the track, and I tapped the wall, and I broke the suspension already. Wow. Okay. Well, it doesn't take much, does it? Oh boy. Well, this is quite an interesting and unique way to drive. Well, I guess we'll have to make a stop, because I cannot drive this car in its current state and just hit a tire. That's probably not going to help the situation either. Well, this is interesting. Well, we'll request a pit stop. Race strategy. Well, you know what we'll do? Since we're all by ourselves here, we'll change the tires, add a little bit of fuel, check out what the pit stop looks like, fix all the damage, and we'll go back out and just see what happens. So I'm going fairly slow here. I'm in 4th place. No, it's lap 4. I'm in 3rd place. I got 2 positions to make up, and obviously this is going to throw a bit of a damper into my race, as we've got that car still sitting there on the exit. He probably got plowed into, and I've got to really get the car woed down here because I don't know what 37 miles an hour here. I'm going to cheat. And into the pits we go. So let's take a look at a Roadster Pit Stop in Project Cars 2. This will be interesting. Oh, it's just a generic IndyCar pit stop. Well, that is not how it was done in real life. I hate to break it to you, Project Cars, but that is not historically accurate. So we'll wait for the tires to be done. There is another car in the pits, so I wonder if I'm racing him. But obviously the repairs are going to take a little bit longer than I generally like. This is going to be a pretty long... Well, this is going to be actually probably a pretty realistic pit stop in terms of what a Roadster actually would have done with 4 tires and fuel, not to mention repairs. But we're here at 40, almost 40 seconds, 37 seconds. And don't hit the car coming out of the pits, and I'm going to pass that car, and he's not going to catch up to me yet. So where are we? 2nd. So I made up a position there, but the leader is on lap 6, so he's 2 laps ahead of me. So I've got to make up 2 laps here. Well, this is definitely not how I would have thought this race would have gone. Oop, and let's not crash the car. I assume there's that car still sitting in turn 4, so again, I've got to be cautious. Look at the wheels and tires just everywhere still down there, so I can't really run the low line either. I didn't damage the car, thankfully, so yeah. There's at least 4 cars left in the race. And it's kind of funny that it has gone this way this quickly. And I'm just going to be real cautious through here. I don't know what to expect on the other side. It's kind of difficult with the banking because it's kind of, with that hill on the inside, it makes it blind as well. And yep, that car is still sitting there. And is probably going to sit there for the remainder of the race, if I'm not mistaken. So that is going to make things incredibly difficult, to say the least. But at the very least, I now know, unless there's something completely unsighted up here, that 1 and 2 is relatively clear. I'm just going to have to be very cautious on the exit of 4. So now we've got to set off in pursuit and make up 2 laps. So that's going to be interesting. But man, this thing, you can see the wheel bouncing in my hand. That's not bad driving. That's the fact that the wheel is bouncing around that much on the, not the banking, I guess you could say, but on the back straightaway. Car almost hooked up there. And again, I've got to be very cautious through here to avoid the stricken car that's just still sitting on the exit of the banking. Now, I will say that's pretty historically accurate. They would not... There was no such thing as a full course yellow back in these days. No such thing as a virtual safety car. Well, I guess technically, I guess full course yellows were virtual safety cars back then, but they certainly weren't nearly as enforced as well as they are now. Yeah. Leaving cars just strewn across the racetrack was commonplace back in these days, especially on the European circuits. Indianapolis would do the same thing in some respects, but obviously probably not to that extent. They probably would have slowed everybody down, possibly even red flagged the race considering how serious the accident was at the beginning of the race. Whoa, and you saw the bumps. Almost pull my car up into the outside guardrail. I got it kind of like, it's almost like driving an extra corner here. It's almost like a chicane to have that car right there, and I just scraped the wall. Did I hurt the car? No, I didn't. Okay, I gotta be careful with the Watson Roadster chicane there. So I'm a minute behind. So I've kind of got to hope that the leader gets into traffic, or maybe hits the chicane in turn 4, and then maybe I have a shot at it. But a minute is essentially, well, it's more than a lap, so I'm more than a lap down, so I'm going to have to unlap myself once, wherever the leader is, and then come back around and get him, because the average speed I would say around here is probably a 52, 53 second lap. I've done 51s in practice, but that was with light fuel and absolutely going balls to the wall. This is not the time for balls to the wall. This is time to be a little bit smarter, and that's a little bit better through there. Again, I just can't go as fast as I'd like to, because I just simply can't. If I push too hard, I'll either crash the car, or I'll crash into another car, and wow, the car came all 4 wheels off the ground coming into turn 1 at Monza. And that bump is there in the Assetto Corsa as well. Both of these games have this part of the track available to use. And when you go through there in a 917 Porsche, and the thing kicks up off the ground, it gets your attention. Maybe not as much as a Roadster kicking up off the ground all 4 wheels, but it certainly gets your attention. I find lifting off the gas and kind of easing the car into the corner low and then kind of using the banking to get through is the best way to do this without stressing the car too much. Oh, God almighty, I hit the wall again. I may have slightly tweaked the suspension that time. Yeah, I just slightly tweaked it. I can feel it. Woo, baby. There's a little bit of more of a slide in turn 1. Turn 1 is so treacherous. This whole complex right here is so difficult. No wonder the AI struggled with it. I don't necessarily blame them. How far am I behind? 1 minute 3. So I'm really not gaining all that much, interestingly enough. So the AI have some good race pace, I guess. Lifting off into turn 3. This seems to be the best way to do it. Kind of straddle that yellow line. And kind of get up to the middle part of the banking. Accelerate through. Essentially clip the apex off of turn 4 where that stricken car is. And at least I didn't get into the wall that time. We're working the mid part of the race. My fastest lap is only a 54. So when I get onto the back straightaway here, let's see what my top speed is. All by myself. That'll be kind of interesting to see. Because I've seen 197, 198. Alright, so let's look at the speed. Speedo is up. 181, 182. I'm not going to try to set a speed record here. 190. Oh yeah, 190 in a Roadster. Sure, why not? I'm going to stop looking at that because that's going to distract me into turn 3. That's not what I... Whoa, there you go. See? Right there. The car almost stepped away on me. You got to be so cautious. Oh! I just let the wheel... I let the wheel have a little bit of slack there because I was worried about hitting him. Thankfully I didn't. Down to turn 1, lifting early. Catching that bump into turn 1, sliding over another bump. Through the corner. Look at the patches of road. This is a ratty surface. It's crazy. Indianapolis, this is not. I think that was the theme going in, and it's the theme as I drive. Amazing that people did this in real life in these cars. Just wrap your mind around that one for a second and just think about how far we've come. And some people would argue how far we've gotten away from what makes racing just the most spectacular sport. This is certainly spectacular, that's for sure. As you saw in the opening lap. Oh man, that was very close. I'm trying to crash. I'm trying to die. I could just secure second place. That would be fine. Second place is fine. At a track like this, I'll take second place. So again, still 1 lap behind, still 57 seconds. You can see the engine's damaged 1%, but we're certainly not red lighting it, which is a good thing. It means the car might actually last to the end. Oy, bouncy, over the bumps. And now coming through to see the damaged car. Ah, clipped the wall again. And that's only hurt the suspension more. Man, it does not take a lot. It does not take a lot to hurt the suspensions in these cars, particularly the Roadsters. It's the second time I've damaged the suspension. This time, at the very least, it's drivable, but I'd very much like to not hit the wall again. I mean, it's just a scrape. It's just a scrape, I can tell you. It's not a whole lot. On lap 14, coming to 15, so 5 laps to go, and I am catching a car up in front. So if this is the leader, I can at least get back on the lead lap and actually complete 5 more laps. At the present moment, I'm not on pace to complete 5 more laps. I'm on pace to complete 4 more laps. Oh, it's like you gotta aim for that car. As crazy as it is, you have to aim for the freaking car that's sitting there. Because that's essentially the apex of the corner. How crazy is that? Into turn 1, car slipping and sliding all over the place down here. That's not a lot of fun. That's a bit nerve-wracking. That's a bit scary. Again, just kind of keeping it low. Last thing I want to do is hit the outside wall. I feel like that would be a little bit more embarrassing. It's like, how'd you hit the outside wall? Alright, catching up to the car in front of me, which I would assume is the leader. Oh, because there's probably not many cars left. My count was 4, based on the lap times and the gaps between the cars. There, that was better. I think somebody keeps hitting that car and moving it down the track, but I can't be certain. Either that or it's just kind of sliding down on its own accord. Who knows? I'm a second off my best lap due to the damage and the general cautious driving, though that entry to turn one was not very cautious. This car bounces and jives over the bumps. Alright, let's get that car in front of me in my sight line. 55 seconds behind, so I've actually lost a little bit of time. Interesting to note there. Down the back straightaway, lifting off the gas. Just kind of playing with the throttle through turn 3. Hard on the accelerator. Through. And literally aiming for that car. Oh boy. Well, I don't know if I'm going to close this car down or not in front of me. Unless I really start running some good lap times, and that was a big risk there. Really drove it in significantly harder than I had previously. See if I'm rewarded. There you go, fastest in Sector 1, so not even fastest in general, but fastest overall. And that's actually a lap car in front of me. I can tell by the blue indicator on the map there. So this is not to unlap myself. This is simply to lap another car. And there are 5 cars left in the race, according to the telemetry there. As you can see, position 2 of 5, despite the fact that there were 12 starters. So we've halved the field after all the crashing. Actually took 3/4 of it if you consider that there's really only 4 cars left, as I suspect the game is still counting the car that's stricken out of turn 4 as an extra one of those cars, as I almost put that tire down on the inside. I guess I'm kind of using that as the apex for 1 and 2. 3 and 4, I'm using the apex as the car down to the inside. I'm still not catching that lap car. And how many laps do we have to go? Essentially, this is going to be 1 to go, I believe, at the line. Really took a brave risk there, really drove it in deep. Car was trying to spin around on me. Okay, now he's officially below the yellow line at least, so now I can finally drive off of turn 4 with some gusto. Let's see what the speed is entering turn 1. Not nearly as fast as I would have liked, but we're definitely flying right now. And I believe this is the last lap, so it's not going to be the most spectacular race in the world, but certainly it was spectacular at the beginning when everybody got taken out. And as I drive around, well, maybe. I don't know if I've unlapped myself or not. At 53 seconds, you'd almost think that I'm coming around to unlap myself, or I have unlapped myself. But it's hard to know for sure. So as long as I stay above this yellow line, I should not hit that car down below, and indeed, yes, he's finally off of the track, and I'm hearing box, box, box. Not really sure about that one, Mr. Race Engineer, because we just crossed the line and finished the Race of 2 Worlds. This was interesting. This did not go the way I think. That is for certain sure. So, Paul Velasco was the guy, I guess the 3rd winner of the Race of 2 Worlds. I finished 2nd, only 5 seconds behind? I don't know how exactly that works, but regardless, Aldo Zappati, I'm guessing he was an Italian entrant, finished on the podium, and the only other car to finish the race in full was Just Canorgold. The other guy who was sitting there forever was Jaime Lopez Trujillo, and then everybody else crashed, including the Stig, who finished last. So that was the Race of 2 Worlds at Monza. How crazy was that, especially on the second lap of the race where we saw that absolutely unbelievable crash that I somehow managed to avoid. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we've got some seriously exciting content coming later on for Indy 500 month, including some great Project Cars 2 content that I think you're going to enjoy as well as this. And if this was any indicator, I guess that works too, considering the month. But this is going to be absolutely wild. You can see that AI car put the Pruitt fade on me there down the back straightaway, and I was able to pass him there through the banking. And we're going to see that crash here in just a second. I think we're going to stick with this until I can see that crash one more time. As you can see the side-by-side action through the banking at Monza. I want to see where that other car managed to have a crash as well. And we're not going to see it, looks like. You can just see the speed. Look how fast these cars look on this track. And mind you, most of these cars were built in the mid-50s. You know, they raced until the mid-60s, but a lot of them were built with 1950s technology. So here we go. Here comes the spin. Should be coming up right about here. And there's some flippy cars. And yeah, somehow I managed to make it through that. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this content, you'll be sure to love Indy 500 months. So be sure to subscribe and also hit the notification bell. Hate to have to say that, but some people were saying that my videos weren't showing up in the sub box. So do that so you're assured that the videos get to you. So thank you guys so much for watching. This has been David Land on YouTube, and we'll see you in the next video.